Hi, this is Jonathan again. Thank you for joining me tonight for another evening with Dr. Jonathan. And I want to talk tonight about uncertainty. Now, uncertainty is something that plays a large role, for example, in anxiety. And as you might remember from one of my other talks, anxiety is different from fear. Fear is about something specific. So I'm, for example, afraid of snakes, or I'm afraid of elephants. Well, maybe not elephants, but it is a specific fear. Anxiety now is about being afraid about something which you can actually not pinpoint, which you can't necessarily grasp or, categorize or put a label on. So, for example, if I'm about to fly somewhere and I feel anxious, the anxiety is usually about actually an emotion or feeling. Like I'm sitting on the airplane, and if I'm anxious and I might feel anxious or afraid, that's often what people are worried about. So an anxiety about becoming anxious, sitting on an airplane, feeling afraid, and I can't leave the airplane. Now, there might be a certain or specific fear involved. For example, that a plane crashes, or I'm not going to get a job, or whatever it is. But the more debilitating is often the anxiety. For example, let's take the job example. You're anxious in an interview, in a job interview, or you're anxious about going to a job interview. Now, why are you anxious? Well, there are probably millions of jobs in the world, probably, depending on the field you're in, tens of millions, hundreds of millions. Also, when it comes to relationships, 8 billion people in the world. So if it doesn't work with one person, and you're interested in, let's say, men, then there's still 4 billion left. And if you're looking at a certain age range, probably still 1 billion left or 500 million. Same applies if you look for a woman. Now, why do we feel anxious? Well, it might be a fear of rejection. But then, why are we afraid of rejection? Well, if it doesn't work out with a person, or if it doesn't work out in a job interview, that's actually a good message, or that's a positive, because this wouldn't have been a match, so I'm not wasting my time. I'll move on. So what are we afraid of? Well, maybe we're afraid of getting hurt. But then the next question is, why do we feel hurt if something doesn't work out? Well, maybe in the end it boils down to uncertainty again. That we feel we might not cope, not even necessarily with the situation, but with how we feel. And the more disconnected we are in the world, and modern life definitely leads to quite a bit of disconnectedness. Well, disconnectedness from oneself. Maybe we're connected with a message in an ad, or what society wants us to do or believe or feel. But connecting with ourselves, knowing more about ourselves, knowing how we feel, what's important to us, what we value, what we aspire to, really deep down, not the superficial things like, for example, making a lot of money, but what's really important to us. So, for example, what do we buy with money, or what does it bring us more security or safety? So it comes down to feelings again. Now, the more we know about our feelings, more we know about how we tick emotionally, the more certainty we have in ourselves. And that also reduces the anxiety we feel in everyday life, or even when we go on an airplane. It's knowing oneself, but not just in a rational sense, or kind of like a knowledge, like an abstract knowledge, but also an emotional knowledge. Actually, not just emotions or feelings. I mean, knowing about what makes us happy, how we tick, what works for us, what doesn't work for us, what makes us anxious, what doesn't make us anxious, what situations make us more anxious and more afraid, and what situations less so. What might actually be helpful, what thoughts might be helpful. So there's a lot about ourselves and how we work, also on the emotional side, which can actually be quite predictable. I mean predictable in a positive sense, not boring predictably, but there's a logic behind it. And the more we find out about this logic, about how we work, how people in general work, that can help against a feeling of uncertainty, against anxiety. So it is the insight, it is an awareness, it is connecting with oneself, it is looking for and being receptive, open to meaningful information from ourselves, from others, asking the right questions, which then leads to the right answers. But most importantly, it is to have a connection with oneself, to have a feeling, a sense of feeling for oneself. And that reduces most fundamental uncertainty, and it also then reduces anxiety, and feeling better is a good thing. It also generates more happiness. And it actually allows us then to live with the uncertainty, like external uncertainty of life, the vagaries of life, it can also be exciting. That it's not entirely predictable. It can be exciting. And this excitement is possible if there's more awareness about oneself, more certainty about oneself. Thank you for watching. Have a good night.